If you guys are ready for this shit, I can't fucking breathe. Can't even read the fucking chat either. You're further? Let's go play the fucking wolf build. I'm a VTuber now, boys. I can't see shit.
Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another Path of Exile build guide video, and in this one we're going to be talking about the Wolf build, and this is a build that's utilizing the Law of the Wild's Claw. Now this Law of the Wild's Claw allows you to trigger level 25 summon Spectral Wolves on crit with the weapon. It also allows you to get some extra damage to yourself based off your Spectral Wolves being summoned. And the cool thing with this build is the niche way of summoning the minions out on the field, which requires you to crit. There is another way to achieve summoning the Spectral Wolves, which is through Essence crafted weapons. However, they are only lower level, and it doesn't really perform as well as this build was able to do. This build was originally designed from Wolfio, and I took a lot of inspiration from his build, including the use of the Gloves Ceaseless Feast, and they basically apply a thing called Corrosion, and the Corrosion applies a negative amount of evasion and armor on the target, and as soon as the enemy target has no armor, they will then generate endurance charges when you're hitting the enemy with these type of gloves, and if they have no evasion, you also get Frenzy, which increases your attack speed and movement speed, but also a little bit of your damage. It's a pretty cool pair of gloves. I never really used them in the past myself, but Wolfie brought them to the table. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make a build out of this. We did decide to make a bit of a tanky approach to this, utilizing the surrender and a life recovery on block approach, and through the means of this you were able to generate a comfortable, almost at the block cap approach with the recovery on block, of course. However, your build is going to be using Cyclone and spinning on top of enemies, which makes the build kind of sketchy when it comes to taking big hits, because you're actually up in the face of the enemies. Now, despite this, I had a really good time playing the build, and the DPS displayed in the path of building is much lower than what you're actually doing. Neither me or Wolfio were able to figure out what is actually causing this, but the estimated DPS seems to be about 3 times more than what's shown in PUB for sure. Wolfie has a great build, so do make sure you check out his build out of this as well. My low-budget version is doing about 1.1 million Shaper DPS, and it's very affordable. Also, the medium budget goes up to about 2 million. PUB DPS, mind you, so it's still more than that, whereas the high budget I was able to push it up to about 5 million and then some. So this build is doing tons more than this, which is actually absolutely crazy to see. But in this video and in the written guide that will be linked in the descriptions below, we're going to be focusing on the low budget version. In the guide, in the written version, you can find the medium and high budget versions. The way I'm designing this build is to play as a Necromancer. This is because of Mistress of Sacrifice, allowing us to very easily achieve block caps thanks to Bone Offering. We're also running with Commander Darkness to ease up on gear, but also gives us some attack and cast speed and damage, but mostly it's because of the extra resistances for us and our minions. I chose to be playing a Necromancer because the minus aggression gives the movement speed, but most importantly, our natural strength allows us to very easily achieve level 25 Ray Spectre Gem, as well as higher level of our Animate Guardian. Now, those two plays a very, very big factor in how much damage we're actually able to pull out of this build. The tree itself is just rather generic. You start off by just rushing out, or you just take the spell damage nodes and you can level with Absolution or Freezing Pulse, whichever floats your boat, to be honest. Outside of that, you pick up some life nodes as well as life nodes over here, and you get the block nodes over here. But when you start leveling this character, you can go for spell damage and then rush to the side, even picking up the enduring bond nodes if you want to, just to make the leveling easier if you decide to level with Absolution. Other than that, it's just life and damage as you see fit. I would normally just rush over to Discipline and Training and then go all the way through here to get the Purity Flesh, Sovereignty, and the damage nodes out on the side here, and then focus entirely on defense nodes if I were to level this character again. However, the finished tree is very, very simple. You pick up the HP nodes to make sure that you get Convocation on CDR reductions. You get some increased crit from the offerings, as well as increased effect of your offerings, but increased crit for your minions, sorry. And you also want to pick up the Safeguard node to have add more value of block to your block chances, because we're kind of limited on that end with this type of build. And just make sure you have the reservation and life reservation efficiency, mana reservation efficiency of your skills to make things easier on you when it comes to reserving your mana for your auras, as well as picking up Sanctuary for block. Do not take Glancing Blows. It is a net loss of EHP, so do not take this. but getting the Sanctuary Node and increased block chance per 5% chance to block on the shield is actually massive, as well as the extra accuracy and great impact for damage for your minions. Outside of this is the low budget approach, which I've just tossed in a random low item level 12 passive minion damage jewel. Normally these are very expensive, but if you buy one that is of very low item level, like between 50 and 65, that costs like a chaos, maybe 2 chaos, and you can get them very easily. Which rolls is on the jewel doesn't really matter. If there's some life, that's good. If there's a renewal, that's good. Feasting Fiend, that's fine. Anything that will be beneficial for you is something you can play with. You can just scour an alk or smack a couple of chaos orbs, whichever method you want to use, or hell, use some harvest reforge till you get something that you think looks all right. And that's all you need to do, because the main purpose of this is to get the small nodes that gives you more damage due to lack of damage available on the tree. The small cluster is a second skin block cluster. I chose to do a attack block cluster. You can have a spell block, as you can see here. The block chance is 75 plus 5, that's 80% block. So you could have done a spell block base jewel instead and rolled a second skin. Very easy. Just alteration spam it and then regal after you've augmented it and keep whatever you get. It doesn't cost anything at all to do something like that. Fortress Covenant can be somewhat expensive, so be a little bit careful when it comes to purchasing the Fortress Covenant. If they are too expensive in a league start scenario, just go with a regular Ghastly Jewel and just get some life and whatnot on that end. Outside of that, the tree is just very generic, as I said. The items, we are using a Law of the Wild's Helion's Paw. This is the baseline unique that actually enables the build because of its summoning wolves on crit. What's really important here is to get as high attack speed as possible. The crit strike chance and whatnot is very beneficial as well, because they actually scale with your claw modifiers. And then you want to get a surrender. You could use a rare shield with life recovery on block as well. They have a tendency of costing a bit more. However, you can also get some attributes in life or resistances on those shields, unlike the surrender, but it shouldn't be a problem. Other than that, we're going for a helmet. Don't need to be a bone helmet, but it is beneficial. If you can get an elder one to get some minion life to support your minions, that would be even better. That gives you some more options when it comes to your sockets, because this build is very socket starved. Having plus level socketed minions gems is very crucial for the higher end version of the low budget build, because you want to make sure you have the highest amount of levels on your Animate Guardian as well as your Spectres. If you know more about the Animate Guardian and your options with that, you can check out the link in the descriptions below, which is a direct link to the Animate Guardian build guide. There's a video there as well. Check that out if you want to learn how to optimize and play with the Animate Guardian. Chest piece is a very specific as well. Obviously, you're going to want to have a hunter chest piece eventually, but on a low budget end, you can still run with something like a tabula rasa to get going. It's not super important, but for the higher end version, this is going to be the big item for the low budget version, is to try to get a hunter chest piece with as much life on as possible, but most importantly, attacks have plus critical strike chance. It's not too hard to get one of those rolled by yourself. It doesn't have to be an astral plate. Just keep in mind that you're going to want to make sure that your colors are correct, which we'll go through in the skills in a bit. But other than that, this is the highest budget item or highest priced item in the low budget set, but you can run with a tabula till you can afford one. Caesar's Feast, very cheap. I explained them earlier. The boots, you want to make sure you get dropped brittle ground, which is an eldritch currency implicit modifier. Other than that, just life resistances, but most importantly, movement speed. The amulet, life, dexterity is kind of the name of the game here. You can allocate charisma to ease up on the mana reservation. There's a couple of other things you can do when it comes to the amulet, such as going for Claws of the Hawk. Claws of the Hawk over here increases critical strike chance with claws and also critical strike multiplier with claws. This is very beneficial for your build. So if you're able to get that oil, which is just a black opalescent and a violent oil, instead of the golden opalescent charisma, that can be very beneficial for you to run as well. So both approaches works fine for this build. Rings, just get some extra resistances and life on both rings. Nothing special. For higher budget, you're going to look into minion damage. Belt, you want to have a Darkness Enthroned. Just some life and extra damage. It's just a generic approach to most minion builds. Rumi's Concoction to help you with the block. Normal life flask. Get some transgressors or any sort of flagellant flasks. These gives you a charge when you're hit by an enemy, and since you'll be in the midst of the enemy packs when you're fighting, they're gonna hit you several times, or you're gonna block most of the attacks. That's gonna give you the flask charges, which you can then use one of the enchanting orbs to get yourself the use when charges reach full to automate the entire utility options from your arsenal when it comes to your Basalt Flask, your not the Granite Flask. That's actually not that good in there because we already have a Granite from the Rumi's Concoction. So you can use anything else there, like a Quartz or something, and that will be perfectly fine to play with. such as the Quicksilver, Quartz, or Basalt, is really good layers of defense. Other than that, the jewels we already talked about. The build is finished at level 93, which is the high end for the low budget. Anything after that would be going for something like a 3-point jewel slot over there, getting another cluster, maybe even going for a cluster over here. But at that point, I'd rather you look into the medium budget version of the build instead. Skill-wise is very simple. In the POB, you have to click and include full DPS on the Summon Spectral Wolf part here and count it to 10 because you can have a maximum of 10 Summon Wolves. But again, the POE DPS is way lower than what you're actually going to be doing. The links work similar to an Arakalis Fang build where you can have something like a Squire, which I tested and it is not worth it. So you put the sockets is support gems inside your weapon. In this case, it's single target design with Predator, Multi-Strike, and Melee Physical. For clearing, I would rather you switch the Multi-Strike and the Predator for something that is beneficial for clearing, such as switching it minion damage or melee splash. Instead, you could run minion speed if you feel the need to. Utility options, you want to have a mark on hit, Assassin's Mark, to automate you cursing the bosses with a mark. Convocation, very important to run that. And utility options in your Spectres, in your helmet, would be your Spectre, Animate Guardian, and a low-level Precision. You can balance this depending on how much mana you have option to have available. When you're looking at the Spectres, you want to run 2 charge Spectres for power charges and 1 for frenzy charges. Since these minions are gradually smacked up in time, what then happens is that you will, in most cases, not get the first set of charges. So after 4 seconds or 5 seconds into a fight, most of your minions will then have 2 power charges and 1 frenzy charge. Then it will take another 4 up to 6 seconds before they get another charge. So the power charges are one of the best things you can run here. And because of this, you are running 2 host chieftains and we're running 1 frenzy charge generating chieftain, which is called a carnage chieftain. The reason we are doing this instead of 2x2 is because we're doing pure physical damage. And we are supporting these guys with Spell Echo, which means the 4th Spectre is a Spectre you can find in Scourge League. That's no longer available. Hence, you go to the Global 6666 channel, which is the channel I made to help some of their community out with some things like this. In there, most people will be able to have you get you the help you need to get a Demon Harpy, and Demon Harpy applies a debuff that increases the physical damage they take by a couple of percent, and it stacks up to 50%. Having Spell Echo linked with this makes it so that 1 Demon Harpy can almost have 100% uptime. It's not there, but almost, which is why I'm actually including this in the PoE DPS, but also because the PoE DPS is actually not accurate because it's lower than what you're actually going to be doing. So that's the Spectres. I have not included much with the AG other than the brittle from the boots. The AG does have the Kingmaker, but nothing else. The curse is edited in the chest. If you look at the chest, there is no curse edited in it. That's only for the higher budget. If you're going into bigger pieces, then you're going to be able to run a vulnerability, additional curse and whatnot. This is not in the low budget, so we completely neglected that. The other utility is obviously having a minion with Feeding Frenzy and having a Flame Dash mobility skill. So we're using the Carrion Golem. You could use a Stone Golem for better defense, as the Stone Golem will taunt for you. And also a Maim, which will increase the damage your minions will be doing on the target, as you can see here. The other auras you'll be running will be a Tempest Shield for the spell block and shock immunity, Defiance Banner for armor evasion, Determination for even more armor, and Pride for more physical damage dealt. The Cyclone setup is pretty straightforward as well. In order of importance, you're going to run Cyclone, Increase Critical Strikes, Cast while Channeling, Desecrate, and Bone Offering. And the 6th link will be Life Gain on hit. Before you have a 6th link, or if you're running a Tabula, you should run that. If you're running a 5 link, which I really wouldn't recommend, you skip the life gain on hit and you trust your reaction speed on the flasks. This build is going to be in the midst of fight. Inside the enemies, it's very important you have the life gain on hit, because if you're looking at the Cyclone, you actually hit 10.31 times per second with this build in the low budget. That's 10 times 44 life per second, plus your life regen at 196.8. This allows you to have 641 HP leech on hit per second as well. It's crazy amount of leech for a low budget build. So that's basically how the skill is set up for this character. It was a pretty cool build to play. It has a rather similar feeling to that of an Arakalis Fang build. The problem with Arakalis Fang is obviously the summoning process is very annoying or very niche and acquired taste, if you will. However, the Arcalis Fangs seem to be performing a bit better than this build. But I will say this, I enjoyed playing this build way more than I enjoyed playing an Arcalis Fangs. If you want to try a build out like this, do check out the guide. There's linked in the descriptions below, which is a written version. So if you're watching this video long after it's been posted and you're looking for an updated version, look at the written guide. That will make sure that you're looking at an updated version of the build guide. And the AG video is also, and the written guide for that is also linked in the descriptions below. So do check that out. Pantheon wise, I'm using a Brine King and Aberrath. It's usually just a matter of personal preference, but I think Brine King is kind of important. Bandits, you just kill them all. I don't think I missed anything else. I think that kind of covered the entire build. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And I hope you guys enjoy this video. Subscribe for more content and hit the like button. I'll catch you guys in the next ones. Until then, stay safe and keep rocking.